So, let's start with the E.I.T.H.R.
You're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with E.I.T.H.R.
Happy Friday, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy D-Cal here hosting episode number 77 of the E.I.T.H.R podcast. Welcome, little ones. Appreciate you guys turning in to the podcast. This is going to be a fun episode. It's going to be a quick episode because here at the GNS HQ, they're doing some construction outside. So you're probably going to hear a bunch of outside noise. So we're going to try to make this episode as swift and painless as possible to keep the distractions. For those of you who are new to this, welcome. The podcast is the elephant in the room where we discuss topics and issues that are going on in the world or maybe that's going on in people's lives. And sometimes the outlet for discussion isn't a safe outlet because people tend to be one-sided or short-sighted. So we tend to look at things, or we attempt to look at things from a multitude of perspectives so that you have more of an informed opinion. So we like to do this thing called shout out so that we also do inspirational and motivational. So a shout out I want to give is to some of the new listeners that I picked up this past week. And we're going to start with Arlington, Texas. Appreciate you guys turning in this week for the previous episodes of the E.I.T.H.R podcast. Pennsville, New Jersey. Hopefully I'm saying it right. Port Huron. Please forgive me if I'm saying it wrong. Port Huron in Michigan. Alpharetta. Lord, I chopped that shit up. I know I said it bad. Alpharetta in Georgia. The stripper likes Georgia. She wants to go there a lot. I don't know why she likes going to Georgia, but that's her favorite kicking spot. And I want to give a shout out to the East Bay area, Walnut Creek. Walnut Creek is interesting because growing up in the East Bay area, I never really was fond of Walnut Creek because of what I believed it to be. And then I had an experience in Walnut Creek which proved me right. But literally after, maybe I manifested the experience, I don't know. But literally the person was exactly who I expected Walnut Creek to be like. And then literally after that encounter, every other encounter I've had in Walnut Creek has been superb. Straight up, 100%. I've always seen Walnut Creek as the East Bay version of Palo Alto. And if anyone else are familiar with Palo Alto, Atherton, that's exactly what I liken Walnut Creek to be. So Walnut Creek, man, shout out to you guys. I appreciate you guys turning into the E.I.T.H.R podcast. It's much appreciated. To everybody else too, Southern California, Los Angeles, Fresno, everyone in Italy, in Spain, everyone in Australia, much love to you guys turning into this. I want to give an inspirational, motivational thing. This is going to be very, very bland, but yo, man, it just, whoever is going through whatever they're going through, man, keep pushing, keep jabbing, keep striking, keep swinging, right? The obstacle's going to fall. I know that light at the end of the tunnel seems like it's very distant for some people, but trust me, it's going to happen. Keep jabbing, man. Today is Friday. We do what's called, and the new segment is the second week where we do an installment called What is Your Mile? Where you get to share some of the things that you're going to improve on. And we're going to get right to the podcast right after word from our sponsor. Be right back.
Most t-shirts are simply cool to look at and or look in. well, so are ours. But ours also aim to send a message. They aim to put a name on obstacles that once stood in your way and aren't there anymore. Struggles that you turned into successes and crushed. You made it look easy. Shop at YOUR.today. YOUR.today. www.YOUR.today. A GNS collection.
Hi, Sarah from California here, listening to Deep Cow, that funny, witty, handsome man with his E.I.T.H.R podcast.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right into it. So one of the issues, or one of the topics I want to talk about, which is a huge issue that for whatever reason isn't big enough, is the derailment of these trains, as you probably heard by now via social media, in East Palestine, Ohio. And there's been a lot other issues with derailment and all kind of catastrophes, man. And rhetorical question, you got to ask yourself, why is the media not talking about a lot of this shit? Now, everyone's going to have their conspiracy theories on why it is. Yours truly has one as well. But bottom line is this. I feel that they're not putting this out there because of elections. I feel they're not putting this out there because of who was responsible for it, who ultimately, I don't want to say created the problem, but who is attached to these issues. There are some people out there who is putting the owner of the chemicals, or the company who is responsible for the containment of these chemicals, who they're connected to, other things that they're attached to. There's one posting I saw on social media. Again, I understand it's social media, where there's a certain media group who is heavily invested into what's going on. I might say responsible, but what I'm saying is that these people they have an ownership stake in it. And I liken this catastrophe to the movie Unstoppable, if you remember, with Chris Pine and Denzel Washington, who I found out that his name is actually pronounced Denzel. He said his name is Denzel, but because he's a junior and his father is a senior, his mother would call him Denzel to differentiate between him and his dad. So it's Denzel Washington, but he's known for Denzel. The movie talks about an unmanned train. If you haven't seen the movie Unstoppable, it's an unmanned train that gets under power. It's a great film. It's one of my favorite Denzel Washington movies, at least my top 5 Denzel film. And it goes into what they need to do to try to stop it from, ironically, derailing in Strenton, Pennsylvania. So this movie came out, I want to say, maybe 2017, 18. I could be way off on the year, but it's almost, and there's a couple other films that are very, very similar. In one of the videos I talked about, there was another film that was created where derailment of a train doesn't necessarily give a timeline, but people in East Palestine, Ohio were extras. And this destination in the film is so close to East Palestine that in the video, it shows documentation that people who lived in that town were driving by, giving their reactions to what was going on in this film, which coincidentally is eerily resembles what's going on right now in Ohio. So why is this stuff not really being broadcasted like it should be broadcasted? I feel because of all the people who are connected, because of the companies and the businesses that are tied to it, is if we don't know, and people seem to be a little bit lazier with their research, a little sloppier with their research. If our name is not attached to it, then necessarily it won't hurt our bottom line. that's kind of where my head is with this type of thing, right? Because if you attach your company name to something that's going on catastrophic in the world, it hurts your company, because then people start holding you responsible for what is going on or what hasn't been done to correct it. So I feel, think, and believe that's another reason why you don't see a lot of it on media, which goes back to the previous episodes I put, man, that a lot of the shit that goes on in the news, they control, and if it doesn't fit the narrative. And we live in a world right now where more so than before, money rules everything we watch, everything we see. So it goes back into that. So this is one of the things that I really do appreciate social media about, because it gives people an outlet to show things. I mean, there's people right now, man, where they're allegedly in Wisconsin and it's snowing. And somebody went out there and they attempted to melt the snow and it turns black. Now, people say because of the chemicals from the lighter and the butane, which is causing a discoloration in the snow. This person is basically saying it feels of a plastic type of texture, and so it even smells chemically. But when she was burning the snow in this video, it wasn't melting. It wasn't even shrinking. It wasn't even decreasing in size. It was almost just, the white snow was literally turning black. So that's kind of interesting. I've never seen that before. Usually when snow is near something hot, it begins to melt. But, I never really tried sticking a match or a lighter up to a snowball and try lighting it on fire. But it's interesting, but all these social media outlets are showing things. Eventually the news is going to have to do the job and kind of put that out there. But I'm just curious, rhetorically, on why news isn't doing it, and I feel like it really has a lot to do with the bottom line, which goes back into, again, who can you trust? And if you do find a trusting news source, are you going to trust it because it is non-biased? Most people kind of want you to pick a side. So that's kind of interesting. The next thing I want to talk about, and I feel that this is somewhat important. If you were a celebrity, would you want, matter of fact, I'm going to read this from our social media. So for social media, you guys can follow us at the E.I.T.H.R podcast on Instagram and Twitter. The handles are the same. It's THEEITHR. So let me see if I can go ahead and find this. So on the social media, we went ahead and did this. If you were a celebrity or influencer who had a large following, would you want any charitable donations you made or anything volunteering contributions you made publicly? If so, why or why not? So basically, if you were a celebrity, whether an athlete, entertainer, or a social media influencer, and you were to feed the homeless, if you were to go into a store and pay for everybody's groceries, or people were standing in line and you paid for all their items, would you want to put that on social media? Me personally, I'm kind of torn on that, where I'm a very private person. I'm the kind of person where if I do something like that, I wouldn't want the world to know, because I wouldn't want people feeling that I'm doing it for the gram. I wouldn't want people thinking I'm doing it for the attention. I wouldn't want the person receiving it to think I'm doing it for the wrong reasons. So I probably wouldn't want to put it on social media. But then the flip side of putting on social media, that in this world of negativity and pessimist type of mindset, it does show people that there are good people out there. So it's kind of putting it on film or on video that you are a good Samaritan and it is a feel-good story, and you do get to share the smile of somebody. Because listen, when I see certain videos of people paying for and doing certain things, it does make me feel good. It makes me feel like it reiterates the fact that there are good people out there. And so it is a good thing, right? Do you guys feel like it's more of a perspective? Do you feel that, can you tell? Or does it really matter? Again, what's your opinion? Like I said, for me, I'm torn. I probably wouldn't do it because I'm more of a private. But I see a lot of people doing things on social media, and I understand the purpose of it. But for me, it's like, is it genuine? Is it authentic? Right? I know that there's some people who do it just for the attention, like I said, man, and it's really sad when people do things just for the attention, because that should not be the reason for it. You know what I mean? But should that kind of stuff be shared, right? And then you get into the situation where people share their good deed, and then it becomes a competition. Are you the kind of person that feels, even if it becomes a competition, does that matter? Because the competition is a good competition? Or are you the kind of person that feels that's just a bad look, that's just a bad form? I have a friend who lives out in Illinois, and we had a nice little conversation on social media about the homeless situation here in Northern California. And I was explaining to her, a lot of the homeless people migrate out this way listen, I've talked to a couple of people, and they, out their own mouths, I also remember reading an article about it. Some homeless migrate to California because of the weather, right? I remember speaking to, if you look at the homeless situation though, from their perspective, it's not as bad as one would think. It is definitely a situation where they do have a need, but if you really pay attention to their circumstances, they have a lot of stress that we don't have to worry about, right? Would they want someone coming up to them and putting that information on the world? What do you guys think? Kind of want to get your feedback. What do you guys feel about that? On Instagram, Twitter, like I said, you can go ahead and hit the E.I.T.H.R, YouTube, and TikTok. You can go ahead and hit us back on the parent company. Just do a search for the parent company, THEGNS Inc. And we're going to come right back for the final segment of this podcast.
What up, though? This is La Cabrona Más Chingona from Kansas City, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with my boy, D-Cal.
I want to give a shout out to Cabrona, the lady who did the E.I.T.H.R plug. She has a mad passion for wanting to own a food truck, and I know we spoke about this on a few episodes ago, but I want to give a kudos to her. So when she's listening, she'll hear this. And besides me putting it out there to the universe for her, adds a little bit more accountability for her to be able to stay on task with it. I think that's kind of dope. She's a Chiefs fan. So if anyone remembers that staged, faked, rigged NFL game last weekend, she's a fan of the team that happened to have got a favorable call and won the game. So, if you guys are not aware, on every Friday we do a segment called What's Your Mile? And Mile is a clothing line for the GNS Inc. And it stands for Make It Look Easy. And this segment is dedicated for anybody who has a task that you want to accomplish, a task that you finally want to get done. This is where you get to sharing. And what I'll do is on the social media is for people who do put it out there, I'll go ahead and give you a shout out on the podcast. and kind of give you like an attaboy or you go girl type of thing to keep you encouraged and inspired and pushing forward. Last week for my mile was really simple. As I said before, I'm really bad at doing content on social media because I'm more of a behind the scenes kind of person. That's me. I don't like doing it for the attention. I'm old school with it. You know, it's I want all eyes off of me as a person, but I want all eyes on me as a brand. So I was able to accomplish a little bit more when it comes to content. So if you follow the TikTok, which is under the GNS Inc. handle, you will see some content that actually has my face. Like I said, I'm far from ugly, but I'm just not a in front of the camera kind of person. So we're doing a little bit more when it comes to content. I'm actually waiting for a shipment because I'm getting some musical equipment to enhance the experience for the GNS Entertainment, so we can get back on track for us doing instrumentals and music that we can put on for websites, we can put on for commercials, we can put on for movies, we can do for background music you hear for the podcast, like myself, for anybody else. So I'm really anxious for that to come in through Amazon. So I'm kind of excited for that. But then the Make It Look Easy that we're going to do this week is really, really simple. And I started earlier this week, and it really helps my anxiety a lot. And that is sticking to a to-do list. So I went and bought me a brand new notebook. I have a really good memory. However, the way my anxiety does work, sometimes the memory gets pushed to the back burner. And whatever task my anxiety kicks in about, that's where my ADD will go. So I have a lot of ideas. It's just like they pour it into a bucket. And then when I think about it, someone takes the bucket and just throw it against the wall, and you just see that splat of ideas. And I'm kind of like, yes. And I start it, but I never finish it. And the next thing I know, there's not enough hours in the day. So this notepad has helped me out tremendously this past week on kicking my anxiety in the ass, on me feeling that I haven't accomplished anything. And anyone who understands me as a person, they know any accomplishment that I make is never going to be good enough for me. I could have done more. I need to do more. And if anybody out there who's listening to this podcast has a similar feeling, I can relate to the stress ball that you may become. So from personal experience with anxiety and ADD, taking the time to write a list down helps you find rest. So that's part of my mile for next week, is to continue to do this. So in the next segment that we're going to get into, I'm going to explain to you guys how a list works and how I break my list down to make it work. So give me a couple seconds. After this plug, we're going to get right into it. So if you stuck around for the podcast, I appreciate. The best is yet to come.
Hey everybody, what's up? This is Sabrina Jade, and you're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with D-Cal.
Okay, so how I do my list is very, very simple. If you have an overthinking brain, it's going to feel uncomfortable for the very first few days. Just letting you know now. It's going to feel, this is not enough, because your brain is so used to being overwhelmed with shit, right? So, get a piece of paper, right? And you draw a line. If I have my webcam and everything set up, I will show you guys. But what you do is you draw a line, and you draw one draw one line horizontally and two vertically, and you're making 3 columns, okay? And you're gonna go from left to right, column A, column B, column C. Now, you don't necessarily have to write this in the columns underneath the letters, but if you want to help you, even be more specific, you can. Column A is your top priority responsibilities and what you need to do. These are this needs to get done yesterday, right? Your column B is okay, this is important and it needs to be done by the end of today. That's your B. These need to get done by the time I go to bed, by the time I leave school, by the time I'm done with work. Your column C is this shit can get done whenever it gets done. A is your high priority, right? B is your priority. C is your, whatever. If it is, it is. If it ain't, then it ain't. You'll start to notice when you put your A and your B, there's not a lot of items in your A or your B. Most of the responsibility, especially again for us high-strung, overthinking individuals, a lot of your stuff is in your C. But what happens is you clump it all together. And by clumping it all together, it doesn't seem organized because it's like this, it's just stirred in this pot. And being that I'm also a pictorial learner, if I see image, if I see picture along with words, it helps my brain visualize what it's supposed to look like, so the words don't necessarily matter. It helps me as a learner. So by looking at this chart, by this to-do list, if you will, I get to literally see what needs to be done. Now, this can happen, you can also do this at your job, right? Because you have things that need to be done at work. Your manager gives you responsibilities. If you work retail, perfect. So, for example, if you work in a clothing store and you're a manager at a clothing store, right? You could prioritize and itemize the responsibilities that you need for your sales group to do, whether it's double checking on payroll, if it's double checking backstock, if it's making sure that your backstock is organized, if it's making sure that the shipment's taken care of, if it's making sure that your people got their breaks, if it's making sure, because when I worked in retail, this was also one of those things that really, really got me. Another reason why you see so many managers running around with their heads cut off, stressing, is because everything needs to be done now. Everything has to get done by 5 o'clock. And the problem is you give some of the least important responsibilities majority of your energy. So by making that list, you visually see where your biggest priorities need to be. Now, what I also do from time to time is I will take the responsibility that would take the most time. I usually do that first. And the reason why I don't do the least responsible thing first and the biggest thing at the end, because it's not how you start, it's how you finish. So if I start off with the most stressful thing, but I knock that out, it's going to make the less stressful responsibilities at the end of my day so much easier, to where my brain and my mental state is so much easier and so much at ease that it's like you can literally look at, okay, I did accomplish something. I did knock that out, right? If you're vacuuming, dishes, laundry, what's the worst thing out of all of them besides all of them, right? What's the one you hate doing the most? Laundry, right? Dishes will probably be second. Well, you can put clothes in the washer, knock the dishes out between the washer and dry, and then you can vacuum. It just makes it so much easier, right? So, what do you guys think? Share with us what is your mile, and we'll go ahead and speak on it for the next episode, next week's episode of What's Your Mile on Friday. This has been your boy D-Cal, the host of the E.I.T.H.R podcast. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube under the GNS Inc. Follow us on the social media platforms. Appreciate y'all. See you next time. Be good.